Don Bosco Vazhikaatti.
எல்லாருக்கும் வணக்கம். Don Bosco Vazhikaatti, Center for Career Guidance, Training and Placement for the past 27 years. Last video நம்ம வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா history of English literature பார்த்தோம். So now today the most important topic is actually called historical background of English language. ஏன் இந்த title historical background அப்படின்றது கொடுத்திருக்கேன் அப்படின்னா last video I dealt with regarding what is actually literature. Where does the literature word comes from? Adalame na solinde. It's just an introduction. But when we get into the form of English language historical background abinamodu, it is very important to study about the historical significance of any other languages. When it comes to English language, that is most important. So in the word vandu neenga kandipa marakave koodadu. When you are step into the life of literature, the most important is historical background. Without that, we cannot able to understand our history and our language. Yeah, timeline of British history. Timeline of British literary history. Here I have given, this is actually a picture that I got it as in the library mari irukku ungalku books ellam paakumbodhu, but I have mentioned because literature is something like the compile of books illaya. So I have divided all the literary histories timeline ellame na inga split up panni potiruken. The very first one is Old English, second one is Middle English, third is Renaissance. Adu spell பண்ணும்போது கரெக்ட்டா pronounce பண்ணுங்க, Renaissance. Next, fourth is Neoclassical and Romantic Period, Victorian Period, Edwardian Period, Georgian, Modern and Postmodern. But in the terms allame that will be new to you, but for that only I have given an example with the pictures, according to the each things. Yeah, Old English in a mother I have given a beautiful, it's actually a Beowulf, it's a beautiful work. It is actually the very first literary piece on Old English la எழுதின ஒரே ஒரு முதல் workன்றது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா Beowulf தான். The second thing is Middle English period la again a beautiful work, and Renaissance la I have given who are all the important poets. Okay, in some of the things I have given the books, the most famous books, and some in I have mentioned the authors actually. So I will be explaining on each one of the things. Ellathillume I will be giving you a brief introduction about what is Renaissance, what is Neoclassical, what is Romantic, and what is Victorian, Edwardian, Georgian. All those things, all those terms I will be explaining you on a detailed manner. But it is very easy to understand about Old English. I can able to easily tell you like what is the Old English and how the English language was divided into old words. I can able to tell you. But what is your understanding on language? If you really able to get it, yes, you can able to get it about the understanding by referring these books. I'll give you a small introduction about this actually. This is actually a social history of England. This book is actually explained about the England history. For example, why I'm insisting on the history in the sense, past 4 years back we had a COVID. It's actually a pandemic. Pandemic is nothing but it's a disease spread worldwide, right? Yeah. After the generation, after 20 to 35 years after our generation, if the people who come in and born in the place same again, they would really don't have an impact of the COVID as we had really, right? They would be able to get it or read it by the histories when the books or through the YouTube videos. But the real impact of COVID was influenced by ours, right? As in the same way, when comes back with the social history of England, it is to understand about what is the political barriers, what all the political influences was happened on the England. By understanding, by reading this book, you will get a very brief introduction about it. And coming back with the history of English literature. Actually, I have posted here 4 books. This is actually called Edward Albert's book, and Hudson, William J. Long by English language literature, and Arthur Compton Rickett. This is actually a very old language book actually. Here in this book you could able to you could able to see the languages is derived into Old English, Middle English and Modern English. By using a familiar terms, you want to have it in a flow, you can use it, the Hudson's book that is more familiar to you, to read it in a very liberal manner. So these are the most important books. I'm introducing the books in the first part of the video because to have a better understanding that we have to follow this both together. These are the 2 platforms that relies on the literature. You have to understand the history as well as we have to understand the literature of history also. Yeah, these are the landmarks of English literature history. The most important periods of English literature are, the very first one is, I have given the years as well as I have told you with the descriptions of what are the timeline I am going to teach you today. Old English or Anglo-Saxon period. The very first thing is Old English or Anglo-Saxon. I am going to teach you this today. Class is Old English. The second thing is Middle English period. Third is Renaissance, Elizabethan age, Jacobean age, Caroline age. Yeah, see here, there is a difference between Old English and Jacobean and Caroline. For this instance only, I am telling you to refer the Social History of England book. What is Elizabethan, what is Jacobean, what is the Caroline in the sense? In the Britain, olden parts of the Britain, there were kings and queens were ruling the England. Okay, they were the ministries, they were the monarchies actually. So when they came into the power, they usually had a liberal difference of in the countries. So we have to study the ages as well as the political powers or the political kings and queens of the powers, how they influence the literature. That is very important. I'll teach you on the next video. It's very simple. Don't think it's very wide to study about the history and everything together. Keep loving literature. It is actually, that you will love to read it and you will listen to speak actually. That is called literature actually. Yeah. Next one is Commonwealth period or Puritan interim. This is actually a most Commonwealth in the sense the most tragic event was marked in the history of London, England. And then the Neoclassical period, the Restoration period, the Augustan age. And the age of sensibility, the Romantic period, Victorian, as I repeated on the timeline, I have given in the years actually specifically. Please make a note of it. The pre-Raphaelites, aestheticism and decadence, the Edwardian period, the Georgian period, the modern period and the postmodern period. At present we are living in the now. Now we are living in the actually called postmodern period. As of this 21st century is called postmodern period. As in the 1940s is called postmodern period. Who are these native Celts actually? Actually we are now living in the year of 2024. Who were our inhabitants? Who were our native people? We don't know, really, right? Yes, I'm going to introduce you about who were the British, inhabitants or the British native peoples. They are called as native Celts. There were probably people in Britain before the Celts, but we know very little about them. The Celts are the earliest known group of people to live on the island around 700 BC. They were the ancestors of the Scots, Irish and Welsh. Yes, actually I'm going to talk about the United Kingdom. UK is something, it's all united together of Scotland, Ireland and all together. So the kingdom is totally united in all the places together, right? As we have the first, these people were the native Celts. They have created their own histories of Britons. Without Celts, we don't have a country called Britain at all. So this is the snippets of the pictures of the Celts people. I think the background could able to say this is actually a Stonehenge. It was a very popular, historical place in the UK. So these were the pictures of Celts. See their appearances, their dress and everything together. They were the very fierce warriors they together. The Celts age is called very Iron Age. Without the government support, they have introduced the iron into the trade and organization. They started their own. They used to create knives with the iron particles, and then they to create the most sword and everything together. They were called as warriors, as well as this age is actually marked as a Iron Age. Yeah, next one is Normans. The people of Normans actually in this picture what they are doing. The Normans after the Celts, the people of Normans who entered, the Norman groups were entered into the Britain to live and settled there. But what happened in the sense, Normans people are more intelligent, so they started to reconstruct the Britain. Reconstructed the Britain means to reconstruct the country. So what they did actually, they constructed the roads. The transportation was formed, and the industrialization was formed in a form of Normans period. So this is actually the pictures. The road was constructed, and see, this is actually the Norman people who were dressed look like a warriors, and these are the pebbles. Using the pebbles and everything together, they started constructing their own roads. This is actually a picture of old Britain. Now you could not able to see a little miniature of there in anywhere in the Britain here. The Tower of London is an internationally famous monument and one of England's most iconic structure actually. This invasion was actually, it was actually built by the William the Conqueror. Actually, he's a king, the William the Conqueror on the Norman period, 1066. Okay, it is actually situated, placed on the river Thames to act as a both fortress and gateway to the capital. Now, it's actually a most famous place in Britain. This was really constructed by the William the Conqueror in the Norman period. Yeah, the next important heroes in English language and literature is Anglo-Saxon people. Anglo-Saxons were really, before that I'll tell you, Normans peoples were introduced the language of French. Normans people, these people of Normans were introduced the language of French into Britain. Now this Anglo-Saxon introduces the language of German into the English language actually called. The Anglo-Saxons invasions. The Anglo-Saxon is a German-speaking people who migrated to Britain after the fall of Roman Empire. Before that we had a Roman people. After the fall of Constantinople of Roman, we had an Anglo-Saxon people entered into the German and brought many changes into the island, including. So I have listed out here what are all the changes was happened due to this. The very first changes was happened by the Anglo-Saxon was the language actually called. The Anglo-Saxons spoke their own language which evolved into the Old English, the direct ancestor of modern English here. As I told you, they were the German invaders. They have introduced a language called German, and with that we have developed our own language into English, but we still have an influence of Latin, Greek and German, French into our own English language. Yes, and religion. The Anglo-Saxons brought their own pagan beliefs but gradually converted into Christianity and converted pagan temples into churches. The most prominently, the religious part was developed by the Anglo-Saxon in the Britain. The more churches were built and they were more traditionally, they were formed by their own religions. Architecture. The Anglo-Saxons replaced Roman stone buildings with wooden ones. Wooden ones in the sense, நம்ம தமிழ்ல சொல்வாங்க என்னன்னா like குழி வீடுன்னு சொல்வாங்க or like pit foot, like pit house அப்படினு சொல்வாங்க. So they also introduced the Grubenhaus. Grubenhaus, which is nothing but a German word, is nothing but a pit house. Okay, a new type of building with a large pit under a floor. This is actually the architect part. And dress. What about the dress, weapons and pottery? The Anglo-Saxon introduces a new type of dress, weapons and pottery. They usually have they used to dress like a warriors. They are like kings and queens, so they used to thought like that. Yeah, then political landscapes. The Anglo-Saxons divided Britain into several kingdoms. The political landscapes in the sense how the division of, how the country was enlarged into different parts of the places. The Anglo-Saxons divided Britain into several kingdoms, including, these are the most important one, the Kent and Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, Essex, Sussex and Wessex. So these are the most important political landscape. I'll show you the map also, how the formation of all these landscapes into old Britain map actually. Then coming back with the culture again, Britain became the center of learning and cultural production. The Anglo-Saxon produced Bible translations, sermons and then epic poetry including the Beowulf. As I already told you, in the period of Anglo-Saxon, the very first poetry was published, Beowulf, by an unknown author. We still know there is, we don't know actually who's the author is actually. Beowulf has been created by an unknown author, but the story was entirely different. Yeah, the next one is military part. King Alfred the Great improved the kingdom's military structure. As I told you, to study the importance of, social history of England, you should know about the historical background of the country to understand the literature, right? To understand, not only by literature, to understand the language of the country. So, all the political background of the country and the importance of language is always interrelated. The next one is legal system. King Alfred the Great improved the kingdom's legal system and the quality of life. King Alfred again the Great improved the quality of life for his people. So on the time Anglo-Saxon, in the time of Anglo-Saxon invention, we have a king of King Alfred. He the one who introduces many norms and everything together. He changes the total world, total country. He reshaped the country. The very first person who reshaped the country is who's called as King Alfred. Yeah, this is actually the map I'm going to show you. This is, see here, settlements of Angles, Saxons and Jutes in the Britain about 600, and you could able to find a word called here is native Britons. Britons, this is the old word for the Britons. Now you usually say like British or Britain, no? On the Old English words, on the Old English period, we have a word called as Britons. Laterly, it was influenced by the French and German. We came into an own structure called Britain. Right. Yeah, in this I just want to show you, right? See, this one is Northumbria, as I told you. This part is Northumbria, as I told you. And we have Middle Angles. See here, Angles, Saxons and Jutes. So, Middle Angles, South Angles, East Angles we have. East Saxon, these map actually shows you a description about the settlements of their settlements of the invaders, actually how they have settled in their places. Middle Ages, East Angles and East Saxons, and then here West Saxons here together and South Saxons together, right? So this is the oldest map of Britain that we have, how the settlers have invaded into the England there. As I told you here, the Kent, Mercia, Northumbria, political landscape as I told you, right? East Anglia, Essex, Sussex and Wessex. This is actually a description of it. Actually, I just want to show you this picture. It's one of the most memorable part of the picture of the old part of the Britain. How the Anglo-Saxon was entered into the way of Britain, how they got influenced and then how they reshaped the country altogether. This is actually a beautiful picture to see and admire all the way about how the Britain was in the olden days. Old English history, as I told you, the very first period is Old English history. The Old English period began in 449 AD with the arrival of 3 Germanic tribes from the continents. As I told you, the Angles, Saxons and the Jutes. They settled in the south and east of Britain, which was then inhabited by the Celts. Yeah, as I told you, the very first people or the native people in the Britain are the Celts. The second people is Normans, the third is Anglo-Saxons. As the Anglo-Saxon who were the people who created and reshaped the country into their own languages and created their own form of English language. The period was happened in Old English period. It was being realized by the Anglo-Saxon. The Anglo-Saxon had their own language called Old English, which was spoken from around the 5th century to 11th century. Old English was a Germanic language. Why it is called as Germanic language? Because it was influenced by the Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxon invaders are the one who influenced the German into English language, right? They brought the new language of German, and as such it was very different from the Celtic languages. Celtic languages is nothing but a native language spoken by the people who were in Celts, who were the native inhabitants of the England. It was also a very different languages from the English we speak today. It was a highly inflected language, meaning that words cannot change their form depending how they are being used. Okay, so there are 4 known dialects of the Old English language. What do you mean by the word dialect? Dialect in the sense, actually, we speak Tamil here in Tamil Nadu together, but there is a major difference, there is a major dialects in Tamil together. The people who in Madurai or Salem together, they used to have a different dialects on their own way of speaking the Tamil. As in the same way, there are 4 known dialects of the Old English language. Northumbria in the northern England and southwest Scotland. Yeah, England and Scotland all together, all the things are together in Old Britain. That's what is called United Kingdom. And Mercian in the central England, Kentish in southeastern England, and West Saxon in the south and southwestern England. So these are the Old English. Actually, it's nothing but an Old English into different dialects. These are the different dialects in Old English: Northumbrian, Mercian, Kentish, and West Saxon. Yeah, English language actually. The English language is a West Germanic language that originated in England. It was even originated in England, but the real invaders were Anglo-Saxon. It is the 3rd most spoken language in the world after the Mandarin Chinese and Spanish. English has been influenced by the number of their languages over the centuries, including the Old Norse, Latin, French and Dutch. So these are the languages like Norse, Latin, French and Dutch. All these languages has been influenced by the English. The earliest form of English were spoken by the Anglo-Saxon who settled in England. Please always keep it remember. Okay, Anglo-Saxons are called as settlers. They are not the native inhabitants. They are the settlers who settled in England. Settled in England in the 5th century. The Anglo-Saxons were a mix of Germanic tribes. As I told you, they brought a new language of German into the England with an Old English. From the Scandinavian and Germany, they brought with them with their own language, which is called as Old English. Okay, so this video actually describes you about the snippets of the historical background as well as the how we are going to understand about the historical background and the English language and literature. These two are interrelated. As you have to study the historical background as well as to understand the English literature language influences. In this video, I have explained you about how the formation of Old English. In the upcoming videos, I will be teaching you all the timelines of British history. Thank you so much for listening.